Bro, we got another white wall situation here. We got another white wall situation here. This is going to be a bullish conversation. It is like 99% guaranteed that if the founder we have on purely has white walls, it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Well, I still got hair, so I'm not bald, Got more work to do.
Nice. So, David, you're the co-founder of Vertigo, which is a sniper-proof launchpad and AMM on Solana.
Yeah,
So,
sniper-proof DEX.
Sniper-proof DEX. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm curious what inspired you to start Vertigo. Is there like a specific moment or experience with existing launchpads? Did you get like sniped to death or something that made you think I gotta solve this problem?
I guess our background is like we've run stuff on chain for years. And we just decided to change teams at a certain point because we saw the game that we love playing. We saw it getting killed. The market was becoming too efficient with too naive of a counterparty. And when that happens, you end up with things like, you end up with Melania, you end up with Libra. Thank you, Meteora. And so we're just like, you know what, this is fucked. And then also we were looking at it, it was like, nobody can compete with Pump. And it's purely a routing discovery, and like there are no tools to have a bonding curve or like a synthetic liquidity product that is like free to use, that people can trade on. And so people would come out with other launch pads, and being the second mover after Pump, they would say, hey, we made a bonding curve, and then nobody would be able to see the coins that are deployed there until they graduate. So it's like it doesn't exist. So we're like, all right, we can solve both those problems at once. We're experts on sniping. We understand liquidity, better than or as good as anyone. Let's just make the thing that solves the problem and give people the toolkit to be able to go compete and make launch pads and do everything therein.
Nice. Can you tell us a bit more about how the snipe proof mechanism works?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's important to understand a little bit of like how sniping works, specifically on Solana. And to do that, you need to understand like what jitter means. And so jitter is the variance in time to land a transaction. Solana, for contested state, so if like there's more than one person that's trying to access a certain piece of block space, it's that you really have no idea, especially back at that time, it's matured a bit since, but you really have no idea which block you're going to land in. And so sniping on Solana isn't actually sniping, it's sending thousands of small transactions, or thousands of transactions with a small prio fee to basically fill the validator queues across all the validators that could be the leader. And then, hoping that like one of those lands first, because sniping, if there's no penalties, there's no risk. It's just a pure risk-free trade. So being first, you always win because you're going to have like a bunch of retarded flow, or like a bunch of average people smashing the buy button because they saw someone tweet a CA. And so it's just like guaranteed exit liquidity if you can land. And so just to like really hammer that down, like it's not sniping, it's spamming to fill a queue. And at the time, the way Meteora had designed their toolkit, it was just tailor made for sniping. It was really, really just like a poor implementation, because it was for every major deploy, right? I had a little Telegram bot on my phone that would ping me every time that there was like the Meteor team directly helping an external team set up a certain style of liquidity pool with a certain data fingerprint. And so it was just, it's like, okay, well, there's a 20-minute period, there's a 4-hour period where they're like setting up the pool, loading in the bins, and then you're just like, all right, this is just so easy. And so there was probably like 5 or 6 counterparties that had really figured that out, and then everybody would just hit it like crazy. And then if you win, you win. And so we're like, all right, this is just like ridiculous. Let's fix it. Let's make it so that you can have, pool creation, token mint, and Genesis trading all in the same block, so that you're not leaving these like 4-hour or 20-minute minimum like breadcrumbs on the chain. So you're like, you reduce the complexity a lot. You change the, your risk vectors on the OPSEC profile. So we're like, let's fix this. Let's build a product that fixes this for like a naive person to be able to do the things that they need to do, which is just make a coin and not have the entire life cycle live in like 2 candles. And that was the genesis of why we started doing, like, why we, came to like, let's solve sniping. And so what we did to solve sniping is actually now it's, everybody else has adopted it. Lots of people like to claim that they invented it, but it is what it is. Which is it's funny how the game works. Everyone's like, we invented this. Oh, yeah, sure you did, big guy. But we introduced a very high decaying tax that decays very, very quickly. And so the idea for this is a sniper-proof mechanism. Like a real user should never see it. You only want to lower the outsized advantage that bots have over regular people. And so what we did was say, hey, every token that's born on the platform, can have 100% tax. If you extend that for just a few slots, a couple of seconds, faster than the fastest human could be landing. But you're basically saying you're forcing the snipers later, because now you can't spam to try and fill the queue to land in block 0, because then you're going to rug yourself. You're going to pay 100% tax. Now, that's great, but you could ask, well, won't they just buy later? And the answer is yes. Right? You're not getting rid of them entirely. You're not saying, hey, it's humans only game. You're just saying you don't always get a risk-free trade. Because now if you're landing in block 5, you might be paying a 15% tax or something. If you do the scale, now it doesn't make as much sense for you to do that every coin, because now you could theoretically or very feasibly have a worse price than an average dummy who's bought it a couple seconds later by seeing it come up on a token stream.
So when you guys launched a few months ago, I think it was with Bullpen? I think there were a bunch of issues because people were trying to trade on. You're restricting it to only the Vertigo launchpad, and people were trading on other.
So the bullpen and the pause team decided to use the tech in a way where they we helped them implement full order flow segmentation. And obviously that didn't go as intended, right? It was kind of a, we're the main character in all the wrong ways for a day, because we made one wrong assumption there, and that wrong assumption was that for all the trading terminals, that if somebody had, say there's 100% tax on a pool, and somebody has slippage parameter set at 5% or 10%, even 50%, if the pool has 100% tax, you'd imagine that because there's 100% tax and a 3% slippage, that the transaction wouldn't go through.
Not how it works.
Well, I don't want to throw stones, but
throw some stones. You want to throw some stones?
Well, no, there's no point in making making enemies, right? It's better to make friends than enemies. But we'll say that what was surprising to us is a lot of trading terminals on Solana that turned slippage into kind of a meme, where the actual swap logic that we didn't, when we were going through the retro of how did this part break? How was this unintended thing where people were able to land transactions returning 0 tokens, and we're quoting the system's quoting 0 tokens out. A lot of swap logic. I don't know how so many people got the same swap logic or swap operator. Maybe there's a package from a long time ago that everybody kind of used when they were writing this, or maybe they just all did it this way. But there were some teams that did it really, really implemented the system really well. Bonkbot did an amazing job of because we also warned all the terminals that hey, there's going to be this event and really high taxes. They wrote the swap operator as if swap returns greater than or equal to 0 tokens, execute transaction. And that's just really unfortunate for everybody, right? If that swap operator is just greater than 0 tokens, it's probably a very different event.
So have you had to adjust how you kind of handle the fee model since then, or have they realized that yeah?
So there's we never really intended to have the system be used for full order flow segmentation, which is hey, this venue gets this price and this venue gets this price. because the implementation of that is just like really kind of it's ham-fisted, right? You're forcing the ecosystem to do something that it like doesn't really want to do. Our strong preference is just to say, hey, like launch the coin at the price it should launch at, and have a few second period that prohibits people, prohibits a certain counterparty from getting a risk-free entry at the expense of retail. And let's make the game not perfectly fair, because a perfectly fair game is boring. But let's make it fair enough that it's still fun to play.
I mean, a thing that I maybe question or struggle with here is just how important it seems that the industrialized token launcher cohort is on your platform for these launch pads to really work well. Like, I think that a lot of the conversation between Pump and then Bonk was really around where is this sort of like the industrial token launcher attention going to, and so to me it seems like it might be inherent to what people ultimately want out of successful token launches, is that there's a large volume of
What
these
you're
things.
seeing there is like the only motion that's left at certain points in the microcycle is fabricated. It's manufactured. It's what people call it's crime volume. And when you have that sort of thing being the primary beacon, people that are left playing the game are like, well, that's the only game to play. It's like I saw Green Candle. I saw somebody make money on chain. It wasn't me, but like, I saw someone over there make some money. So like, I need to go over there too. And that's why like the meta right now has been like, oh, make a runner, like, engineer, like do whatever you have to like make a coin go up, because that's a signal to the community, the broader community, that like you can engineer volatility to the upside. And it's basically people asking you like, please do the crime, because it's a subtle acknowledgement or an implicit acknowledgement that there's like really there's very few organic things happening. Very, very few. Even the most viral content or viral like subgroups in the world, if it's not engineered in a certain way or architected in a certain way, it's a bit dry. And so like we built Vertigo to just say, rather than taking the approach of hey, we're gonna like, we released the launch pad UI that just gives 100% fees back to creators, rather than saying like, okay, we're gonna play king and choose the winner here, choose the winner there, so that like take some fees, take some of your money and use it to pump like one of your coins. We're just gonna say, hey, you can have all of the fees back, right? For the average coin launched on Vertigo right now, that goes to like 70K market cap, the creator's making $1,000 in royalties. Like 400K, 500K market cap, like creators are making $10,000 in royalties in the span of like an hour or two. For bigger projects, it's going to be in the millions. And so that's the exciting part, is because like you have something like Vine, right? That would have generated on the state of Vertigo now, like another $55 million in fees for the team. It just changes the game entirely. It's like talking to players, the psychology of people using a platform, for them to just print money without needing to smash the sell button. They're like, wow, I can just like make this a true attention economy. Because if I maintain attention on this coin for long enough, I'm making just as much money than if I did like go full rape mode and just dump the thing.
Can you walk us through how the like Magic Soul or Magic USDC mechanism
so
works?
all Vertigo is it's just it's a bonding curve where you can start the price at any price, and then there is instant graduation at any price, or just like stays on the same curve basically. So all it is a way for you to say actually a great example, right? You remember the old days, if you wanted to like start a pool before we had bonding curves be super prominent, you would just take some amount of Sol or some amount of ETH, and then you pair it with your token you just minted in the pool, and then you lock and burn the LP, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're like, okay, cool, yeah. Now like I have the thing that people can trade. And then let's imagine for a second, right? People buy your coin, it goes really high, and then every single person sells your coin. That initial amount you burn, that initial, say, $1,000 worth of whatever you burned, is still stuck in that pool forever. right? It never actually moved out of that pool. It never went to anybody's pocket. So it begs the question of like, what did you actually need? Like what purpose did that $1,000 actually set? And all you're doing is seeding the initial liquidity to make it so that you're starting at a non-zero market cap. So you put money into the pool so you're not starting at zero. Because if your token starts at zero, you end up with like I think it was like a couple months ago on base, everybody had a complete meltdown because something got sniped and then got dumped, right? That like Jesse and the Coinbase people were all in on. It's not a sniping issue; it's a pricing issue. If you start a coin at $25 market cap, someone's getting 5% for $1. Like the price can never appreciate past a certain point. And so with the Magic USDC or Magic Soul, it's a way for the developers building on the platform to say, okay, it is now free for us to start at a 5K market cap or 100K market cap, and the pool will behave exactly as if you'd actually burned $100,000, right? Exactly as if you'd burned $5,000 into that LP, and it's the same constant product AMM. Price just goes up along the curve, price goes down. But it just really want to emphasize, it is the same thing as a two-sided LP, except you didn't have to set money on fire, right? The liquidity depth, the price movement, right? If you have $100,000 in Magic USDC in the pool, it feels like a very, very deep pool.
Okay, so I guess my big question, if it sounds like you're sort of disavowing the idea of you need runners to be a successful launch pad, and I guess
no, that's still true. That's absolutely true. Yeah. That was like that's acknowledging.
Okay,
Yeah.
so acknowledging that you need runners. Yeah. So I'm curious when you think about, because I think we're at this interesting
The
stage.
thing about Vertigo, right, is I think it's important to steer the conversation, but it's like Vertigo doesn't we have a front end that people can use that gives away all the money, but it's really not. We're not pushing against bags. We're not pushing against like pump, right? We push against Radium. We push against Meteora. And it's because people are now there's great teams. There are amazing teams building their full businesses, their full stacks, their full launch pads using the Vertigo AMM, because for them it's by far the best product.
Okay, cool. Well, let me get to my question then, because I think what I'm really interested in is that we sort of feel like we're at the end of this launchpad cycle and maybe stepping into something new, right? And maybe you could say what Zora is doing is a version of a launchpad with more of a platform or an app around it, and it's trying to create a new social context. So I guess my question is, do you see, are we at the end of a launchpad model, or do we see much more there? Or is like this sort of app product centric where tokens being launched is kind of core to the functionality of the site more likely to be the way that
there's two things that are going to happen. So the launch pads are being largely commoditized because of systems like Vertigo that make building them easy. Now, the other part of this is like there's a lot of people who've used launch pads for a long time, and so Zora is a good sleight of hand, and tip my hat to them, because they sanitized launching coins. They're like, you're not launching a coin, you're just using an app. Oh, there's a coin. Now you have a coin. Cool. And then, you can ignore it if you want to, but then because of the token model, as price goes up, when your coin goes up that you accidentally made, you're like, well, I'm going to claim the clout from this. And then I'm going to go get noisy because my token's up 3x or 5x or whatever, because, Zora went up and everything's paired with Zora. And so there's we see the next wave of like onboarding crypto native creators to, like the sanitized launchpad space. And so there will be a few different ways that people do that. And then there's the next wave after that, which is sanitizing token launches and like, value capture for every subset or group outside, like beyond the crypto native audience. So whether that's TikTok or like, politicians, right? There's all these different, like, people will find a way to keep the meta going until there's no more buyers. Until like it's just like the music fully stops playing. And when and how that happens, I'm not really sure. You know, there's a lot more things to build than like token launch pads in the world for as far as like consumer products and that are like really interesting to use. But that's how I see this playing out. You know, exactly how fast.
I'm curious how you think about the, I guess, like defensibility of what you're building. We obviously saw it, you know, Pump owning, you know, the attention of a bunch of people and vertically integrating the DEX. You mentioned that people are, you know, pretty.
Yeah. So there's a reason that, you know, there's a reason, maybe I will throw a stone here. There's a reason that, fuck it. There's a reason that Pump maintained their position for so long. And it's because the tech, you know, people are like, the tech stack is relatively immature. And it's also verticalized by competitive forces that do not want you to enter what has been to this point a captured game. And so your question, remind me of your question.
Yeah, just wondering about you know, you're building this protocol infrastructure.
How does it commoditize?
Like how does this become like, you know, a winner long term?
So the defensibility of Vertigo is actually indexing and routing on Solana is largely a monopolized game. If you want to bring a new primitive to market, you will spend, even if you're one of the best teams in the world, you'll spend several months going to every trading terminal, asking them to integrate your stuff. But the thing about this is every new integration, everyone being able to like index or support your primitive is engineering work. And so everybody obviously is reluctant. And you know, there's also aggregators. There's one big aggregator that matters. There's actually only one aggregator that matters. So it's Jupiter. And so Jupiter has their front end that lots of people go to make swaps. And they started out as, hey, we're the aggregator for all things Solana. But what they ended up as is vertically integrated stack, where they're heavily incentivized to create, copy, or kill competing projects that might erode Meteor's market share. And so you are in a terrible dilemma if you're trying to bring a new primitive to market on Solana, because Jupiter owns your biggest competitor, and they have their front end that lots of people go to swap, but they also have an API that powers almost every major trading front end with a couple exceptions. And so it's like if Google says, hey, your website doesn't exist, nobody's going to find it. But then all the users are perfectly happy. All the customers are perfectly happy because there's like, you know, they look at what's happening on the chain and they say, well, is there anything happening that I'm not getting exposure to, that I'm not getting coverage on, right? Is there some like big volume cluster over here that like this aggregator isn't servicing? Well, the answer is no. And it's because in a monopolistic router state, when somebody controls all the order flow, you actually, nothing really can happen outside of that. And so it becomes like a central gate of who gets to like, you either need to make a ton of noise, which is why anybody trying to do a new thing is forced to like engineer some sort of like magnificent explosive event. You need to make so much noise that you're too big to ignore somehow, right? Be it big launches, be it pre-sales, whatever. Because otherwise, you don't get to exist. And so that's actually that's the moat of something like Vertigo, is that there are parties that want to constrain and limit the entrance based on, and are able to do so based on like controlling the routing, discovery, and order flow upstream. And these are the things that I like, you know, you're not really supposed to say it. You're just supposed to say spirit of competition, but like it is how it is.
I love it.
And so thankfully we've got to the point where now we have, you know, full state integration, which is great, right? That is defensible. That is valuable for anybody who wants to. The biggest thing is for anybody who wants to enter the space, or like, own a piece of this market or get into this market. Most people cannot. And that's like part of the real value, is you think like the bottom of the stack, like, so we get commoditized very quickly on the AMM side. It's just not going to happen.
Interesting. All right, Matt, we're coming up to the top of the hour here. I guess I'm curious, as you sort of look forward, it sounds like you guys are doing a bunch of the hard work behind the scenes. What do folks who maybe are just want to buy some tokens, what do they have to look forward to from the Vertigo stack?
We built Vertigo for token creators. And so the teams that are finding Vertigo are the ones who are really, really high quality teams, because they are not counting on somebody else to engineer their exit liquidity for them. A lot of deployers rotate across different ecosystems because they're saying, oh, maybe like Uncle or like Solana portfolio Thomas will pump my bag. I got news. He's not going to. And so it's like the teams that are coming to Vertigo, it's like, yeah, we help people a ton behind the scenes, but we're also like the teams that come to us that are planning launches on Vertigo, that are building on Vertigo, they know they have their own motion. And because there's nothing else in the world that gives 100% of revenue back to them, they're like, wow, this is a way for like me to personally verticalize. They're super excited. And so there's two things. Like, one, Vertigo.sh, people can make coins and you will print money on royalties, even if you just like drop it in a group chat. It's actually really, really, it feels like getting your first airdrop all over again. It's just like a shot of cocaine. And then two, the teams that are like more serious in building, just keep an eye out. It's going to be, it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, David, let's leave it there, man. Thanks for jumping in and illustrating some of the maybe not obvious competitive dynamics that live.
It's a fantastic game to play. I wake up every day loving it.
Right on, brother. All right, well, best of luck, and we'll keep an eye on what comes out of the Vertigo ecosystem. Cheers. Brother.
Peace, man.